So what? You file paperwork for the army. My wife's sister grinned at the barbecue. I wiped my hands on Alpha Nu Alpha Kappa. No, I fly. She laughed. Oh yeah? What's your call sign? I said, Iron Widow. My wife's dad, a Navy SEAL, went still. Girl, apologize. Now, he knew exactly who I was. If hell hosted a family reunion, it would look exactly like the Hayes summer barbecue. Plastic chairs that stuck to your thighs, cheap beers sweating in coolers, country music that made you question humanity, and unsolicited career advice from people who think LinkedIn is a dating app. I was standing at the grill, watching a questionable piece of chicken pretend to be edible, when I realized once again why the phrase in-laws sounds like a legal sentence. I'd been married to Harper Hayes for 5 years. She was perfect, smart, kind, and the only Hayes with a functioning sense of humor. But her family? Oh, her family was a sitcom that ran for too many seasons. There was Patricia, the mom who still introduced herself as retired model turned homemaker, even though her modeling career ended when bell bottoms did. Douglas Hayes, Commander Douglas Hayes, the retired Navy SEAL turned barbecue dictator who thought tongs were tactical gear. And then there was Chloe, Harper's sister, the kind of woman who majored in sarcasm and minored in making other people uncomfortable. If confidence were currency, Chloe would have owned a small country, possibly one with bad Wi-Fi and a law against humility. So there I was, flipping burgers like it was a military op, trying to stay under the radar, when she leaned in with that grin, the kind that said, I'm about to ruin your day for sport. So, Ryan, she started, swirling her drink like a Bond villain in flip-flops. You file paperwork for the army, right? The sound of sizzling meat and country twang nearly drowned her out. But trust me, my brain heard every syllable. No, I said, wiping my hands on a napkin. I fly. She snorted. Actually snorted. Oh yeah? What's your call sign, Iron Chef? Her voice was loud enough to get everyone's attention. Even the dog stopped sniffing the cooler. I smiled, that calm, dangerous smile pilots use right before things get interesting. Close, I said. Iron Widow. Her laugh died mid-breath. You could almost hear the record scratch. Commander Hayes froze mid-bite, ribs halfway to his mouth. And for once, the man looked confused. That never happens. Girl, he said in a tone that could freeze lava, apologize. Now, Chloe blinked. Wait, what? Harper looked up from the salad table, frowning. Patricia's face went pale, which was impressive considering her usual shade of cosmetic beige. Dad, Harper asked, glancing between us. The spatula slipped slightly in my hand. I was calm, but my brain was already going full alert. The commander knew. The old man knew. You could see it in his face, that flash of memory, that flicker of recognition. He wasn't looking at me like his daughter's husband anymore. He was looking at Iron Widow, the guy he once thought was a myth. The backyard went dead quiet. Even the mosquitoes called a ceasefire. Everyone's eyes shifted to Douglas Hayes, who now looked like he was seeing a ghost. He set his plate down, jaw tightening. Apologize, he repeated, voice rougher this time. You don't talk to that man like that. Dad, what's going on? Harper asked, clearly trying to process why her father had suddenly turned into Liam Neeson. It's nothing, I said, flipping another burger. Your dad's just remembering something classified. Douglas gave me a look. That mix of gratitude and guilt you only see from someone who's suddenly realizing the quiet guy at the barbecue once saved his life. Patricia stepped forward, clutching her wine glass like a talisman. What's Iron Widow? She asked. The question hung in the air like smoke. Douglas's eyes never left mine. That's the pilot who saved our men in '07. Silence. Harper blinked. You mean? Yeah, Douglas said quietly. That was him. Chloe's mouth fell open. You're kidding. I grinned. Nope. Still not funny, though. I flipped another burger with exaggerated calm. Anyone want extra smoke on theirs? Nobody spoke. The only sound was the faint hiss of the grill and a far-off country song about trucks and heartbreak that suddenly felt way too ironic. Patricia looked between her husband and me like she was trying to rewrite the last 5 years of family history. You mean to tell me, Ryan, the one who brings potato salad in store containers, is that Iron Widow? Douglas gave a slow nod. That's him. The pilot they said didn't make it out alive. You never told us that, Harper whispered, eyes wide. You never asked, I said lightly, grabbing a beer. And to be fair, Your family was more interested in mocking my choice of apron than my service record. Chloe looked like she wanted to crawl into the grill and self-immolate. I'm so sorry, she mumbled. I didn't know. Don't sweat it, I said, popping the cap off my beer. I prefer low expectations. Makes everything else look heroic. Douglas took a slow sip of his drink, eyes fixed on me like he was remembering every detail. The radio chatter, the sound of the helicopter blades, the desert storm. Iron Widow, he muttered. Damn, you really were that guy. Still am, I said. Just upgraded from sandstorms to suburban drama. The commander actually laughed. For the first time in history, the man laughed. Patricia, however, looked like she'd just realized her entire social circle had been bragging about the wrong son-in-law. You mean my bridge friends have been calling you Ryan the clerk this whole time? You can update them, I said. Maybe Ryan the guy who saved your husband's life will look better on Christmas cards. Harper was still staring at me, processing. Why didn't you ever tell me? Because, I said, flipping the last burger, I didn't marry you for applause. Chloe let out a weak laugh, more from embarrassment than humor. Okay, but Iron Widow? That's kind of badass. It's better than Iron Chef, I said. Though my burgers are pretty deadly. The tension broke. Laughter rippled through the group. Awkward at first, then real. Even Patricia chuckled, though it sounded like her pride was still digesting it. The conversation slowly shifted back to normal topics. Who brought the potato salad? Why the neighbor's kid kept stealing sodas? And whether Douglas's grill was overkill for a backyard cookout. But under all that, something had shifted. The balance. The unspoken hierarchy. The civilian son-in-law who dabbles in planes had just been promoted, permanently. Later that evening, when the sun dipped low and the fireflies came out, Douglas approached me quietly. He didn't say much, he didn't have to. He just nodded once, that subtle military nod that means respect, gratitude. We're good. Didn't expect you to recognize the call sign, I said. He smirked. Didn't expect Iron Widow to marry my daughter. Yeah, life's funny like that, I said. 1 minute you're flying through hell, the next you're arguing about potato salad. He chuckled, a deep, genuine sound I didn't think he was capable of. You handled it well, he said. Didn't rub it in. Didn't need to, I replied. They'll Google it later. He laughed again. Fair enough. Patricia joined him, looping her arm through his. Ryan, she said, voice soft now. We've misjudged you. It's okay, I said. If it helps, I misjudged your deviled eggs. She gasped, then smiled. Touché. Chloe approached next, holding a plate of brownies like a peace offering. For real, I'm sorry, she said. Guess I'm not as funny as I thought. You're fine, I said. Just remember, next time you tease someone about their job, make sure they're not licensed to bomb small countries. She laughed nervously. Deal. As the night wrapped up, I sat on the porch with Harper, watching Douglas argue with the grill like it had insulted his service record. You're awfully calm for someone who just blew up a family myth, she said. What can I say? I grinned. Classified info makes for great dinner conversation. She nudged me. I can't believe you never told me. You married me for me, not for medals, I said. Besides, your dad and I made a deal years ago. A deal? Yeah, I said, sipping my beer. He keeps my missions quiet. I pretend his grilling doesn't violate the Geneva Convention. She burst out laughing so hard she nearly dropped her drink. And in that moment, with laughter echoing across the yard, I realized something. Sometimes silence isn't about hiding who you are. It's about waiting for the right moment to remind people exactly who they're dealing with. That night, as the stars blinked over a backyard full of smoke and beer cans, I smiled to myself. The Hayes family would never look at me the same way again. And honestly, about damn time. You ever walk into a family gathering and realize you're the designated punchline? That was me, every single Hayes event before the great barbecue revelation. Imagine a roast you never agreed to, starring your in-laws as the headlining comedians and you as the confused guy holding a plate of cold coleslaw. The Hayes clan had a special gift. They could turn anything I said into a punchline and somehow make me thank them for it. Patricia, my mother-in-law, was the ringleader. She had this talent for smiling while she insulted you, like a Southern belle who just told you your shirt was adorably brave. Every time she introduced me to someone new, she'd clap her hands together and chirp, "This is Ryan, our civilian son-in-law who dabbles in planes." Dabbles. like I was finger painting with jet fuel. The woman made it sound like I occasionally glued wings to paper and hoped for lift. And Douglas, the retired SEAL patriarch, he just grunted, not words, just noises. The man could express an entire emotional range with a single He'd sit there with his arms crossed, looking like a cross between a judge and a linebacker, occasionally tossing in helpful commentary like, "Real pilots don't wear oven mitts when they grill, son." Then there was Chloe, my favorite. Harper's sister, a woman who made sarcasm her religion and gossip her cardio. She'd roll her eyes, toss her blonde hair, and hit me with something like, "Oh look, Ryan brought his little flight cap. So cute. You gonna fly the grill next?" Every single time, the family would burst out laughing like it was primetime comedy hour, and I'd just smile, sip my drink, and silently remind myself that jail time wasn't worth it. They thought I was soft. They thought because I didn't brag about medals or bark orders, I must have been some paper-pushing clerk who flinched at turbulence. What they didn't know was that half the things I'd done were still stamped classified, and the other half were too insane to explain to people who still thought Bluetooth was witchcraft. But I let it slide, because in marriage, I'd learned something important. Silence beats handcuffs. You can't get arrested for thinking sarcastic thoughts, no matter how vivid they are. Every holiday, every dinner, every small family get-together, I'd put on the calm husband act. The yes, ma'am, no, sir, please pass the casserole persona. Meanwhile, I'd sit there mentally calculating wind speed and trajectory, wondering if it was physically possible to eject from a dining table conversation without breaking a window. One Thanksgiving, Patricia decided to hold a gratitude circle. You know, that thing where everyone shares what they're thankful for while pretending not to judge each other's answers. Harper said she was thankful for family. Douglas said he was thankful for discipline. Chloe said she was thankful for Botox. Then Patricia turned to me, eyes gleaming with the kind of mischief only Chardonnay could fuel, and said, "And you, Ryan? What are you thankful for? Office supplies?" I smiled. "Actually, Patricia, I'm thankful for flight clearance and fuel efficiency." She blinked, confused. "Oh," she said, chuckling. "You mean, like, your little job?" "No," I said, still smiling. "Like the kind that saved 12 people's lives in Kandahar." The silence was beautiful, brief, but beautiful. Then Douglas coughed, muttered something about kids these days exaggerating, and the moment was gone. Harper squeezed my hand under the table, giving me the look, the universal married look that says please don't start a family war before dessert. So I didn't. I let it go. Again, every time they poked at me, I'd think back to the things I'd seen. Tracer rounds cutting through darkness, the way the radio goes quiet when a friend doesn't make it back, the kind of silence that makes you appreciate every dumb joke you'll ever hear again. So yeah, I could handle a few snide comments about my desk job. They were amateurs. I'd survived worse than family dinners with cheap wine and overcooked turkey. But the funny thing about people like the Hayes, they love to underestimate you. They build this version of you in their heads, simple, predictable, safe, and then they act shocked when you don't fit the script. Douglas would watch me mow the lawn and mutter, "Bet he logs that in his flight hours." Chloe once asked if I wore my pilot gloves while washing dishes. Patricia once gave me a gift, a framed quote that said behind every great man is a woman rolling her eyes. Cute. I hung it up in the garage, right next to my flight helmet. They didn't get it. They didn't understand that humility wasn't weakness, it was strategy. See, I'd spent years flying missions where bragging got people killed, where silence wasn't about pride, it was about survival. So yeah, I could survive family brunch. I treated their insults like turbulence, unpleasant but temporary. Harper used to whisper, "You're so patient." I'd grin and say, "Nah, just trained for long flights." And she'd laugh, because she didn't know how literal that was. The truth was, I didn't need them to respect me. I just needed them to keep their noise below jet engine level until dessert. The worst was the Christmas party. Douglas had decided to host a military-themed dinner, because apparently, nothing says holiday spirit like camo tablecloths and flag napkins. He wore his old uniform jacket, chest puffed like a peacock, while I sat there in a sweater Harper picked out, trying not to laugh at the irony. At one point, he leaned back and said, "You know, Ryan, you remind me of my old radio guy. Good with buttons, bad under pressure." I took a sip of my drink, smiled, and said, "Funny, You remind me of my old co-pilot, loud and always slightly lost. Harper choked on her wine. Chloe spat out a laugh. Douglas froze, and for one brief moment, I thought I might have just earned his respect, or a headlock. But he grinned, nodded slowly, and said, "You've got bite, son. I like that." I smiled back. "Careful, Commander. I bite harder than I look." Patricia gasped. Chloe laughed so hard she had to excuse herself. And for a second, just 1 second, I thought maybe, just maybe, I'd crack through the fortress of Hayes' arrogance. Then Patricia refilled her glass and said, "Oh, men and their jokes. Anyway, Ryan, how's your little flying hobby?" And boom, back to square one. The following months were rinse and repeat. More dinners, more mockery, more chances for me to fantasize about moving to another state. But through it all, Harper stayed loyal, always defending me, always reminding them that I was more than they gave me credit for. She'd say things like, "Ryan's flown more miles than you've driven, Dad," or "He's just modest, Mom." And every time, they'd nod like she'd said something adorable, then go right back to treating me like the family's emotional support husband. Still, I kept showing up. Because love makes you do stupid things, like attending brunches with people who think Top Gun is a documentary. But here's the thing. When you're surrounded by ignorance long enough, you learn to weaponize it. You turn it into armor. Their underestimation became my favorite invisibility cloak. I could observe, plan, and quietly enjoy knowing I had stories they'd never believe. Stories they wouldn't even be cleared to hear. And I knew, deep down, that someday, the truth would surface. That one day, the universe would hand me a microphone, or in my case, a spatula, and say, "Your turn." Until then, I kept flipping metaphorical burgers, smiling through the jokes, and thinking to myself, ignorance is loud, but it burns out fast. And when that summer barbecue rolled around, the one where Chloe cracked her Iron Chef joke, oh, I was ready. I didn't plan the reveal, but when it happened, when the laughter died and Douglas Hayes himself went pale, it felt like poetic justice. Every snide comment, every jab, every little pilot nickname, all of it turned to ash the second he realized who I really was. The same man they dismissed had once flown through hell to save Douglas's squad. The same civilian son-in-law had kept their family's patriarch alive long enough to have these barbecues in the first place. Karma. As it turns out, loves irony. Looking back, those years of ignorance were the setup. Every joke, every condescending smile, it made that one moment of silence hit harder. Because respect isn't earned by bragging. It's earned by surviving, by standing there calm and steady while people reveal who they are. So yeah, before that day, every Hayes gathering felt like a roast I never signed up for. But after that day, let's just say they started Googling Iron Widow real fast. And somewhere between Patricia's shocked silence and Douglas's sudden salute, I realized, sometimes the best revenge is just letting the truth land on its own runway. You ever notice how a backyard barbecue smells like peace until you realize you're surrounded by people who think mayonnaise is a spice and gossip is a sport? That was me, apron on, spatula in hand, pretending the smell of lighter fluid and hypocrisy didn't clash. From the outside, it looked like a normal Saturday. Paper plates, plastic cups, kids chasing each other with water balloons, someone's uncle complaining about gas prices like he personally controlled OPEC. But inside my head, the sound of laughter and clinking bottles kept dissolving into rotor blades and radio static. It's weird how trauma sneaks up on you. 1 second you're flipping burgers, the next your brain's replaying a desert storm like a movie you didn't buy tickets for. I remember looking at the smoke curling up from the grill, and all I could think was, I've seen that color before, over Kandahar, over broken metal, over a horizon that never forgave me. Most people think flying is glamorous. They imagine Top Gun high fives, sunset shots, and aviator shades that make you irresistible. Reality check. Most of the time, you're sweating in a cockpit that smells like fuel and fear, praying the radar isn't lying. My call sign, Iron Widow, wasn't some macho nickname I picked because it sounded cool. It was given to me after my third emergency landing, the one where the co-pilot didn't make it back. There's a twisted rule in our squadron. You earn a call sign by surviving something no one else should have. Iron Widow stuck because every time the odds went bad, I walked away, and someone didn't. Not exactly a party story, So yeah, I kept that one to myself. So while the Hayes family was debating whether sweet corn or coleslaw counted as a vegetable, I was standing over the grill, surrounded by people who thought classified meant boring. I could hear Chloe laughing behind me, already working the crowd like she was running open mic night. Ryan takes his grilling seriously, she said. He probably writes a flight plan for his burgers. Everyone laughed. Huh, original. I just smiled, flipped a patty, and muttered under my breath, at least my burgers don't crash. Douglas, the commander himself, was on his second beer, holding court about the good old days, SEAL missions, covert ops, near-death experiences that conveniently never had witnesses. Every sentence started with, back when men were men, which roughly translated to, please clap. I didn't mind. I'd learned early that old soldiers need to tell stories so they can live with the ones they can't. But then he said it, the thing that always poked my patience. Flying, he told a wide-eyed cousin, is logistics. The real work's on the ground. I nearly choked on my own smirk. Logistics? Buddy, I once flew through a sandstorm so thick it looked like Mars was trying to kill us. I've dodged RPGs, navigated blind, and landed on a runway that barely existed, all while listening to screaming through a headset. Logistics my ass. But I didn't say that. I just brushed some barbecue sauce on a drumstick like I was painting calmness onto chaos. The truth, and oh, it was a juicy one, was that Douglas's legendary SEAL team wouldn't have made it home in 2007 if it weren't for Iron Widow. Yep, that was me. Same guy now in an apron with Kiss the Cook, printed in red letters like a cosmic joke. His team was pinned down in an op that went sideways fast. Wrong coordinates, sandstorm inbound, radio blackout. Command told me to abort. I didn't. Because when you hear men screaming coordinates through static, you don't check your manual. You check your pulse and push forward. I still remember the sound of the engine straining, the storm turning daylight into blood orange, visibility down to nothing, and that gut feeling that said, if you mess this up, they're done. I dropped elevation, went under the radar, literally, and pulled those guys out piece by piece. 12 of them, Douglas included. He was younger then, meaner, but alive because of a very reckless pilot who didn't listen to orders. He never talked about it. Probably because it's hard to make jokes about the guy who once had your life in his hands. I don't blame him. Pride's a funny thing. It burns slow, like jet fuel. Some men spend years pretending their near death didn't happen because it reminds them they weren't in control. And Douglas? Control was his religion. So he kept it quiet, let the myth fade. And meanwhile I built a new life. Quieter, calmer, more human. I swapped cockpits for cul-de-sacs, combat for cookouts, and I told myself that silence was strength. Until that damn barbecue. The smell of charcoal kept messing with me. Smoke does that to veterans. You don't just see it, you feel it. It crawls up your spine, whispers memories you thought you'd buried. I stared at the flame, saw the same shimmer of heat that used to rise off the tarmac after a landing. My hand tightened on the spatula. Ridiculous, right? But it wasn't a spatula anymore. It was a flight stick, slick with sweat. I blinked hard, shook it off, and turned to meat. Nobody noticed, which was good. The last thing I needed was Chloe thinking PTSD stood for, please tell stories. Then came the moment. Chloe, with her half-buzzed confidence, sauntered up, drink in hand, and threw her now infamous grenade. So, Ryan, you file paperwork for the Army, right? It hit harder than she knew, because it wasn't just ignorance. It was the echo of every civilian who never gets it, every assumption that war is just buttons and bravado. I could have ignored it. Hell, I almost did. But then I saw Douglas, beer halfway to his mouth, freeze. He knew that call sign when I dropped it. Iron Widow. It was instinct. I didn't plan to reveal it, but something in me wanted that silence, that pause where truth punches pride in the face. And when it hit him, the way his jaw locked and eyes went distant, I knew exactly where his mind went. Not to the backyard, but back to the desert, to that storm, that voice on the radio saying, hold tight. I'm coming. The shift was immediate. You could feel it. The laughter evaporated. The air thickened. The burgers kept sizzling, but the world went still. Douglas wasn't looking at his son-in-law anymore. He was looking at a ghost from a chapter he thought was closed. And for the first time, I realized something. I hadn't just saved his life. I'd been haunting it ever since. That night, after everyone went home, Harper and I sat in the dark kitchen. She was quiet, stirring her tea the way people do when they're trying not to ask something heavy. "Why didn't you ever tell me?" she finally said. I took a breath. "Because I didn't marry you to be Iron Widow. I married you to be Ryan." She nodded, but her eyes glistened like she was re-meeting me. "You saved my dad." "I saved 12 men," I corrected. "Your dad just happened to be one of them." She smiled through her tears. "He's never going to live this down." "Good," I said. "He still owes me a drink." But even after that, my brain kept replaying the past. You can't just flip a switch on adrenaline and memory. Some nights, I still hear the beeping of instruments, the mechanical heartbeat of a machine that trusted me more than I trusted myself. Flying was never just about skill. It was about nerve, about knowing the sky might kill you and going up anyway. That's what people like Chloe would never understand. You don't come home from that and brag. You come home and build IKEA furniture in silence because you're just happy to have walls around you. Funny thing, after the barbecue, Douglas started treating me differently. Not outright sentimental, but the kind of respect you can feel without words. He'd give me the nod, the unspoken "I see you." We didn't talk about the mission. We didn't have to. Soldiers don't need words when silence already says enough. But I could tell he was thinking about it, about that day, about the man behind the spatula. Maybe he finally understood that sometimes the quiet ones are only quiet because they've already heard too much noise. If I'm being honest, I didn't feel heroic. I never do. Heroism is messy. It's blood, sweat, and fear disguised as duty. It's watching the sun rise over a place you'd give anything to forget. It's shaking hands with ghosts every time you close your eyes. That's why I never told the Hazes, because they wouldn't understand the cost behind the medal. And if they did, they'd stop laughing, and I'd lose the one thing I liked about that family, their ability to turn everything into a joke, even if I was the punchline. So yeah, I let them mock. I let them tease. Because deep down, I knew someday the truth would come out, and when it did, it wouldn't just rewrite my image, it'd rewire theirs. I didn't want to humiliate them. Well, maybe Chloe a little, but I did want them to see that not every hero wears camouflage to the dinner table. Some of us wear aprons and keep the fire steady. That barbecue, the one they thought was just another summer hangout, became the battlefield where truth finally landed. I didn't need applause. I didn't need medals. I just needed that one moment when the world stopped laughing long enough to listen. And it came, wrapped in smoke, silence, and the stunned face of a man who finally realized his daughter married the pilot who once saved him from disappearing into desert dust. After that day, I looked at the grill differently. It wasn't just a tool for burgers. It was a symbol of control, of patience, of heat managed instead of chaos endured. Operation Barbecue wasn't planned, but damn, it was successful. Mission accomplished, and not a single casualty, except maybe Chloe's ego. If awkward silence had a flavor, that backyard was marinated in it. You could taste the tension between the ribs and the regret. After Chloe's paperwork jab and my not-so-subtle drop of Iron Widow, the Hayes family cookout went from rowdy sitcom to courtroom drama in 10 seconds flat. Even the mosquitoes took the night off. Douglas Hayes, the man who once claimed he could stare down a grizzly, looked like someone had just unplugged his ego. The commander was frozen mid-bite, holding his rib like it might testify against him. Chloe was still half smiling, half terrified, trying to figure out why her dad looked like he'd seen a ghost with flight clearance. And Patricia, dear Patricia, was clutching her wine like a lifeline, her Botoxed forehead furrowing for the first time in history. I'd seen combat zones calmer than that backyard. Harper, bless her peacekeeping heart, leaned in close to me and whispered, "Ryan, what's going on?" Her voice had that careful edge of a woman trying not to panic in front of family. I grinned, not a forced grin, but that cocky, pilot-level calm that always gets me in trouble. "Oh," I said, flipping a burger with one hand. "Your dad just remembered something classified." Douglas's eyes darted to me, narrowing like he wanted to disagree but couldn't. The man's brain was rebooting in real time. Patricia blinked at both of us, confusion painted all over her face. "What's Iron Widow?" she asked, like it was a brand of perfume. Douglas took a slow breath, the kind you only take when you're about to drop a truth bomb nobody saw coming. "That's the pilot," he said, voice low, "who saved our men in '07. You could have heard a toothpick drop." Harper turned to me. eyes wide. You mean? She started, but Douglas cut her off. Yeah, he said, still staring at me. That was him. Now, I don't know what part one enjoyed more. Chloe's face turning ghost white or Patricia gasping like someone had just told her carbs were back on the banned list. Chloe stammered. You're kidding, right? I smiled, casually flipping another burger. Nope. Still not funny, though. The spatula sizzled, and for once, the silence felt earned. Douglas looked at me with this weird mix of shock, respect, and maybe a little shame. The kind of look you give someone you've spent years underestimating. Patricia set her drink down, trembling just enough to make the ice clink. Wait, you mean to tell me? Orion, the one who helps with the recycling. Was that Iron Widow? She asked, her voice cracking on that. Douglas nodded slowly, eyes never leaving mine. That's him. The pilot command said was MIA for 2 days. The one who flew through the storm. He swallowed. The one who didn't listen to orders. Chloe looked like she wanted to melt into the grass. Wow, she muttered. I didn't know. Don't worry, I said. Classified tends to mean that. I took a sip of my beer. Now, who wants extra smoke on theirs? No one laughed. Even the dog stopped panting. It was glorious. Patricia finally found her voice. Why didn't you say anything? She demanded. All these years, we've been judging me. I offered. She blinked, caught. Well, yes, but why didn't you correct us? I shrugged. Didn't seem worth it. I figured if I told you, you'd just start asking me to give motivational speeches at brunch. That got a nervous laugh from Harper, but everyone else was still too stunned to function. Douglas finally spoke again, quieter this time. You broke 2 ribs landing that bird, didn't you? He asked. His tone wasn't that of a father-in-law. It was a soldier talking to another. I met his eyes. Yeah, I said. Could have been worse. I still had all 12 of your guys breathing when I hit the tarmac. He nodded once, tight-lipped, eyes glassy. I never forgot that voice over the comms, he said. Didn't think I'd ever meet it again, let alone at my daughter's wedding years later. Small world, I said. And you still managed to make it smaller at every barbecue. For the first time ever, Douglas cracked a smile. Small, controlled, but real. You always were cocky, he said. You always were loud. I shot back. That broke the ice. Harper exhaled like she'd been holding her breath for a decade. Patricia blinked back tears she swore were just from the smoke. Chloe shuffled awkwardly, clutching a plate she clearly didn't need anymore. So, Patricia said finally, her voice regaining its usual high pitch. Our son-in-law's a war hero, and we've been calling him Paper Boy. She turned to Douglas, smacking his shoulder. You let me embarrass us for 5 years. You were doing fine without me, Douglas muttered. I almost lost it right there. Chloe cleared her throat. So, when you said you fly, you meant real planes? Yep, I said. Big, noisy ones. Not the kind that drop off Amazon packages. She winced. I'm sorry, Ryan. I was ignorant. I suggested. Yeah, she sighed. That. Don't worry, I said. Ignorance is curable. Just takes a little altitude. Even Douglas chuckled at that. As the tension started to fade, the air filled with a different kind of silence. One that wasn't about shock, but respect. Patricia started gathering plates, mumbling something about rethinking the seating chart for next Thanksgiving. Harper slipped her arm around my waist. You could have told me, she whispered. You married me, not my call sign, I said. Besides, I liked being your boring husband. Easier that way. She smiled up at me. I don't think boring is the word I'd use. Heroic then? Sarcastic, she said. Still heroic, I replied. Later that night, after everyone had gone home, I stood by the dying grill, the smoke curling lazily into the dark. Douglas walked over, carrying 2 beers. He handed me one. You ever think about what would have happened if you hadn't gone in? He asked. Every day, I said. But not for long. Regret's a waste of fuel. He nodded, thoughtful. You know, he said, when I found out Harper was marrying a pilot, I thought, here we go, I groaned. No, he said, chuckling. I thought she was marrying a guy who'd bail when things got tough. Turns out, she married the only man I know who doesn't know how to quit. You just realized that? I asked. Better late than never, he said. Besides, humility isn't my strong suit. No kidding, I said, raising my beer. To humility, then, yours on backorder. He clinked his bottle against mine and actually laughed. You're a pain in the ass, Blake, he said. You're not wrong, Commander. We stood there in the quiet backyard. Two men who'd both seen too much pretending we were just talking about grilling techniques. The smoke drifted between us like a ghost of the past, curling and fading into nothing. You know, Douglas said after a while, Patricia's gonna start telling everyone our son-in-law's a national treasure. That'll make Christmas fun, I said. Guess I'll have to start charging for autographs. You've got jokes now, huh? He said. Always did, I replied. You were just too busy grunting to notice. He laughed again, this time louder, freer. And for the first time since I'd joined that family, I realized something important. Douglas Hayes didn't hate me. He just didn't know me. The man respected battle scars, not wedding rings. And now that he finally knew both, I wasn't the enemy anymore. When I went back inside, Harper was cleaning up. Chloe was helping, trying to earn redemption through dish soap. Need a hand? I asked. Chloe looked up sheepishly. I think I owe you more than that, she said. You saved my dad. I shrugged. I saved a team. He just happened to be the loudest one on it. Still, she said, I'm sorry. For all the jokes. You weren't wrong, I said. I do file paperwork sometimes. She tilted her head. Missiles count as paperwork. They do when you sign them. That earned the first genuine laugh I'd ever heard from her. You're scary, Ryan. You're just realizing that. By the time everyone left, the air had softened. The backyard, once full of noise and laughter and judgment, was now just quiet, peaceful, even. The kind of peace you get after a long, overdue truth finally lands. I sat on the porch steps, watching the smoke drift away, and thought about how fast life can shift. One moment you're the family joke, the next you're the guy who flew through hell and came back with extra burgers. Harper came out, wrapping a blanket around my shoulders. You okay? She asked. Always, I said. You sure? Yeah. Just thinking how smoke always clears, eventually. She leaned her head on my shoulder. They'll never tease you again, you know. I smiled. Oh, they will. Just with more respect. As the last ember died in the grill, I realized the truth. Sometimes silence isn't strength, it's survival. You keep quiet not because you're weak, but because you know one day, the truth will roar louder than any defense you could ever make. Tonight, it did. And the best part? I didn't even have to raise my voice. The Hayes barbecue would never be the same again. Smoke, silence, and a side of reality, all served fresh off the grill. If you've never had someone apologize to you while holding a tray of muffins like it's a peace treaty, you haven't truly lived. The morning after the great barbecue revelation, I woke up to the smell of burnt coffee and the faint sound of guilt knocking on my front door. I shuffled downstairs in my old Flight Academy t-shirt, the one Harper always steals when she's cold, even though we both know it's emotional theft, and opened the door to find Chloe Hayes, my sister-in-law, standing there like a sinner at confession. She held a basket of muffins so big it looked like she was bribing a small army. You're really a combat pilot? She asked before I could even say good morning. Her tone was somewhere between awe, regret, and mild panic, like she'd just realized the guy she used to mock might also know how to call in an airstrike. I leaned against the doorframe, sipping my coffee like a man who finally had the upper hand. Yep, real planes. No paper clips. She blinked, nodding way too fast. And you saved Dad's team? Just doing my job, I said. I didn't need to flex. The silence was doing it for me. Wow, she whispered. I thought you were like admin support or something. I am, I said, keeping a straight face. I just file paperwork with missiles. She nearly choked on her own guilt. That's when Douglas walked in through the side door, because, apparently, retired SEALs don't believe in knocking. He had that smug grin that only veterans get after being proven wrong. He's being modest, he said, clapping a hand on my shoulder hard enough to rearrange my spine. He flew under radar, saved 12 men, and broke 2 ribs landing. The man's a damn machine. I shot him a look. So you do remember. He grinned. Hard to forget the guy who dragged my sorry ass out of a desert. Patricia appeared behind him, robe tied tight, eyes wide as she processed the conversation like it was a daytime drama. Douglas Hayes, you mean to tell me you never told us that? She demanded. Didn't want to make Thanksgiving awkward, he said with a shrug. Too late for that, I muttered. Harper came downstairs then, hair messy, face still soft from sleep. What's going on? She mumbled. Apology tour, I said, pointing at Chloe's muffin basket. Stage 1, carbohydrates. Chloe groaned. Oh my God, will you ever let this go? Nope, I said cheerfully. I waited 5 years for this. Patricia stepped forward, ever the dramatic matriarch. Ryan, I owe you an apology too, she said, hands clasped like she was addressing the Pope. We may have underestimated you. May have? I asked, raising an eyebrow. You called me civilian support staff in front of your bridge club. She gasped. You heard that? Oh yeah, I said, sipping my coffee. I was in the kitchen. Great acoustics in your house. Douglas chuckled, clearly enjoying the rare moment of watching his family squirm. Told you not to underestimate quiet men, he said. They're usually the ones with stories. Patricia gave him a glare sharp enough to cut steak. You're enjoying this. Damn right I am, he said. You all teased this man for years, and he never said a word. That's discipline. Or patience, Harper said, wrapping her arm around me. Or fear of being disowned, I added. Everyone laughed, awkwardly, but it was progress. We all sat down in the living room like it was a post-mission debrief. Chloe pushed the muffin basket toward me. Pick one, she said. They're apology-flavored. I picked a blueberry one, tore it in half, and nodded. Tastes like regret. Nice touch. She rolled her eyes but smiled. Okay, fine, I deserve that. You deserved worse, I said. But I'm a forgiving man. Patricia sighed. So what now? Are we supposed to salute you at dinner? No, I said. Just maybe stop introducing me like I fly drones for DoorDash. Harper sat back, smirking. You realize they're all going to overcompensate now, right? She whispered to me. Yeah, I said. I give it a week before someone knits me a flag. Douglas leaned forward. You know, son, I should have told them. But I figured it was your story to tell. You figured wrong, I said. It's a hell of a lot funnier this way. The next few days were weird, like living in an alternate universe where I suddenly mattered at family functions. Patricia called me captain for the first time, like we were on a cruise. Harper's uncle started texting me random military memes. Even Chloe texted me, do you still have your flight suit? Which, coming from her, was progress. Douglas invited me over for men's night, which apparently meant beer, cigars, and him pretending not to ask questions about classified missions. So, he said one evening, exhaling smoke like a wise old cliché, what's it like up there? I smirked. Quiet. Peaceful. No family drama. He laughed so hard he nearly choked. You're all right, kid, he said, handing me another beer. Didn't think you had that edge in you. You weren't looking, I said. You were too busy guarding the grill. Patricia, on the other hand, began her own redemption campaign. Suddenly, she was inviting me to lunch, asking about my career milestones, and baking desserts that didn't taste like resentment. One afternoon, she even said, you know, Ryan, I think we misjudged you. I grinned. You think? All right, she said, we did misjudge you. Don't worry, I said. I like low expectations. Makes it easier to impress people. You're insufferable, she said, smiling despite herself. And yet, I replied, you keep baking for me. Chloe's transformation was the funniest part. She went from eye-rolling skeptic to my accidental hype woman. At family dinners, she'd tell everyone. You know Ryan flew rescue missions, right? Like she was my PR rep. Once, at a coffee shop, I heard her bragging to a friend, my brother-in-law's a legend. I nearly spit out my latte. When she caught me, she turned red. Don't get smug, she said. I still think you're a dork. You think a lot of things, I said. Most of them wrong. But here's the thing. Beneath all the teasing and late apologies, something shifted. Douglas started calling me son, without irony. Patricia stopped looking at me like I was a questionable life choice. And Chloe? She stopped joking and started listening. Turns out, they weren't malicious. Just blind. People like them live in small worlds, safe, suburban bubbles where war is something that happens on TV between commercial breaks. They didn't know what it meant to live with ghosts or gratitude. And now they did. A week later, Douglas dropped by again. He had that look, the same one he had back in the desert, when he realized the mission might actually succeed. You know, he said, I've spent years being the hero in my stories. Feels good to know someone else gets the credit for once. Don't worry, Commander, I said. You can still have the dramatic monologues. He laughed. Deal. Then he handed me a small, worn patch, his old unit insignia. Keep it, he said. Consider it an overdue thank you. I turned it over in my hands. The stitching frayed, the colors faded. You sure? I asked. Yeah, he said. It's been collecting dust. Looks better on a man who's still earning his stripes. When he left, Harper found me staring at it. You okay? She asked. Yeah, I said. Just realizing this is the weirdest apology I've ever gotten. She smiled. At least it's sincere. Yeah, I said. But muffins were easier to digest. The following weekend, we all had dinner together. No tension, no jokes, no backhanded compliments. Just laughter. Chloe even asked me to say grace. I smirked. You sure you want the guy with missiles to bless the food? Douglas chuckled. Go on, Captain. So I did. Lord, thank you for family, forgiveness, and the fact that Chloe didn't burn the rolls this time. Everyone laughed, even Patricia. It felt normal. Finally, that night, as we said goodbye, Chloe hugged me. Really hugged me. Not the stiff, I guess we're related kind. You're a good man, Ryan, she said. Don't let it go to your head. Too late, I said. Already there. She laughed and walked away shaking her head. Harper leaned into me, whispering, You love this, don't you? Absolutely, I said. I waited years for this redemption arc. And as I closed the door that night, I couldn't help but think, respect doesn't always land on schedule. Sometimes it circles the runway for years before finally touching down. But when it does, it's worth every second of turbulence. You know how they say good things take time? Yeah, well, respect in the Hayes family took so long to land it probably needed air traffic control clearance. One day I was Harper's husband who plays pilot, and the next, I was Captain Ryan Blake, Iron Widow, savior of the SEALs. The switch was so dramatic I half expected a theme song to play every time I walked into their house. The same people who used to ignore me at family dinners were suddenly pulling chairs for me, asking about missions they didn't have clearance to even Google. It was surreal. Harper's cousins, those loud 20-somethings who once debated whether I really flew planes or just helped out at the airport, were now begging for selfies like I was a celebrity. Can you do the pilot pose? One of them asked. You know, like in Top Gun? Sure, I said. If you can do the taxpayer pose, you paid for my fuel. They laughed, but I wasn't kidding. I'd been invisible to this family for years. Now I was the golden ticket to their patriotic fantasies. Harper just sat there watching me with that smirk she does when she knows I'm both amused and mildly disgusted. Even Patricia, the queen of passive aggression, started acting like she was my campaign manager. One afternoon she dropped off a pie. Yes, an actual homemade pie. And it didn't taste like regret or judgment for once. I thought you might enjoy something sweet, she said, smiling like she hadn't spent 5 years pretending I was furniture. What's the occasion? I asked. No occasion, she said quickly, then hesitated. Just appreciation. I took a bite. Not poisoned. She gasped. Ryan, hey, just checking, I said, grinning. Old habits. She rolled her eyes but smiled. For Patricia, that was basically a declaration of love. Then there was Douglas. The man had done a full 180. He went from treating me like a civilian intern to introducing me to strangers as the finest damn pilot I ever knew. You want whiplash? Try hearing your father-in-law brag about you after years of mockery. One day, he even asked me to come over early before a family dinner. Need a hand with the grill? I asked. No, he said. Need advice. I nearly dropped my coffee. Advice? Yeah, he said. Nora's thinking about joining the Air Force. I figured you'd know what to tell her. Nora, his niece. The same one who once asked me if flying made your ears pop. Wow, I said. You trust me with career advice now? He grunted. I trust you more than the recruiter. That's fair, I said. Recruiters have better marketing. We sat in his garage, Douglas's sacred man cave filled with medals, half-finished projects, and the unmistakable smell of WD-40 and pride. You know, he said, polishing a wrench like it was symbolic. I didn't respect you at first. Thought you were soft. You weren't wrong, I said. I moisturize. He laughed, shaking his head. Nah, I just didn't get it. You didn't brag. You didn't bark. I thought that meant you didn't have backbone. But you were just steady. Quiet steady. That's one way to say boring, I replied. No, he said, meeting my eyes. That's one way to say reliable. Coming from Douglas Hayes, that was basically a night ship. Later that night, we sat around the dinner table. No tension, no mockery, just laughter and stories. Patricia even poured me the good wine. Chloe was scrolling through her phone, and suddenly she said, Oh my God, Ryan, Did you know there's a Reddit thread about you? Please tell me you're kidding, I said. Nope, she said, grinning. Some old SEAL wrote a post about the Iron Widow extraction pilot. It's gone viral. You're like a legend now. Douglas puffed up like a proud dad. Damn right he is. I covered my face. Fantastic. I'm internet famous. My life's complete. Harper laughed so hard she nearly spilled her drink. Oh, come on, hero. Enjoy it. Nah, I said. The last time I went viral, it was food poisoning. But beneath all the jokes, something had changed for real. For the first time, I wasn't a background extra in my own marriage's family saga. I was part of the story, respected, appreciated, even admired. It was strange, though, because the thing I'd spent years not talking about was suddenly all they wanted to talk about. Every visit turned into an impromptu Q&A session. So, did you ever fly over enemy lines? What's the scariest thing that happened? Did you really break ribs and keep flying? Can you teach me how to land a plane? Yeah, sure. In about 10 years, I'd say, grinning. I didn't mind the questions. Okay, I minded some, but I could tell they were finally seeing me as more than Harper's husband. I'd gone from background noise to main character. Harper noticed too. One night, while we were driving home from another family dinner that didn't end in passive-aggressive chaos, she reached over and rested her hand on mine. You seem lighter, she said. Lighter? Yeah, she smiled. Like the weight's off. You're finally being seen. I chuckled. Took them 5 years and one classified confession, but yeah. You earned it, she said softly. You didn't need to prove anything, but I'm glad they finally get it. I'm glad too, I said. Now maybe they'll stop asking me to bring paper plates. A few days later, I got a call from Douglas. You free tonight? He asked. Depends, I said. Are we grilling or having a heart-to-heart? Both, he said. Bring beer. I showed up to find him sitting on the porch, looking out at the sunset with that haunted butt content look old soldiers get. You ever miss it? He asked. Flying, I said. Every day, but I like sleeping without sand in my teeth. He nodded. You know, I used to think retirement was peace. Turns out it's just quieter noise. Yeah, I said. Peace is overrated. Boring as hell. He laughed. You're a strange man, Blake. You raised a strange daughter, I said. He clinked his bottle against mine. Fair. The weirdest part about respect arriving late is that it doesn't come quietly. It's loud. Obvious. Overcompensating. Patricia started introducing me to strangers as our son-in-law, the pilot hero. Chloe bought me a mug that said, warning, may drop truth bombs. Even Nora gave me a hand-drawn card that said, you're cool, Uncle Iron Widow. I kept it on the fridge, partly because it was sweet, partly because it would annoy Patricia that her art piece got replaced by a crayon jet. Eventually, even Douglas started opening up more. One night, he confessed, you know, when I realized it was you who saved us. I felt ashamed. Why? I asked. Because, he said quietly, I'd been mocking the man who once saved my life. That's not something you come back from easy. You just did, I said. Took a few burgers, but I forgive you. He chuckled. Guess I owe you more than beer. Yeah, I said, but I'll take beer anyway. Harper loved seeing it, her dad and me finally getting along. One evening, she caught us watching an old war movie together. You two bonding over explosions? She teased. No, Douglas said, just comparing accuracy. They got the flight physics all wrong. I smirked. Yeah, and the dialogue's too coherent. She rolled her eyes. You're both impossible. That's called chemistry, I said. Stockholm Syndrome, she countered. But if I'm being honest, respect came with its own kind of pressure. Suddenly, everyone looked at me differently. Like I was this flawless example of courage. Like I hadn't had nights where my hands shook, or days where I questioned everything. They wanted the myth, not the man. So I played along, told them the funny versions of stories, skipped the dark parts. It was easier that way. Let them keep their hero. The truth, that I was just a man who did his job and got lucky, didn't fit as nicely into family dinners. Still, there was something healing about it. The jokes stopped being cruel and started being affectionate. Chloe once teased, Hey, Iron Widow, need help parallel parking? And I said, yeah, because my F-22 didn't come with backup cameras. Everyone laughed. Even I did. It was the kind of laughter that comes from comfort, not condescension. For once, I belonged, not because of medals or missions, but because they finally saw me. A month later, Douglas pulled me aside after dinner. You know, he said, I should have said something years ago. About what? I asked. About what you did. About who you are. I should have told them sooner. I smiled. Relax. If I wanted glory, I'd have gone into politics. He laughed. Still, I'm proud. You earn more than jokes. I raised my beer. And yet, the jokes were character building. He nodded. You handled it better than I would have. That's because I'm better looking, I said. He burst out laughing, almost spilling his drink. When we left that night, Harper looked at me and said, You know, it took them a while, but they got there. I smiled, watching Douglas wave from the porch. Yeah, I said. Respect lands late, but at least it lands. And as we drove home, windows down, radio low, I thought about how far we'd come, from mockery to mutual admiration. The mission wasn't just survival anymore. It was acceptance. And for the first time in years, it felt like the sky had finally cleared. When Harper announced she was hosting another family barbecue, I swear I heard thunder, and not the natural kind. It was the sound of my PTSD waking up and saying, Oh, we're doing that again. The last cookout had turned into a classified history lesson, a live-action redemption arc, and a whole lot of emotional smoke. But this time, it felt different. Douglas had been treating me like an equal ever since the big reveal. Patricia was pretending she'd always liked me, and Chloe was, well, trying. Which was impressive considering trying was a foreign language to her. I told Harper, You know this means your dad's gonna hand me the tongs like it's a passing of command, right? She smirked. Good. You've earned it, Captain. I leaned in. Yeah, but if he salutes me again, I'm charging him rent. The day of the barbecue was unusually calm. Blue skies, light breeze, no underlying family judgment wafting through the air. I set up the grill while Douglas hovered nearby like a mission supervisor, arms crossed, inspecting every move. You're using charcoal? He asked. Of course, I said. You want flavor or speed? Flavor, he admitted. Good answer, Captain, I said, smirking. Permission to proceed? He rolled his eyes but cracked a grin. Permission granted. It was our new thing, mock military banter, half serious, half sarcastic. Patricia walked out carrying a tray of deviled eggs like they were medals of honor. I made extra this time, she said, smiling proudly. So no one complains. We've all grown so much, I said. Last time, I thought you were going to report me to HR for my apron. She gave me a playful swat with a napkin. Progress. Then there was Chloe. She arrived late, as usual, but for once, she didn't start with a joke. Need help with the burgers? She asked, hovering awkwardly near the grill. No, I said. This is a military operation. Stay in civilian territory. Copy that, she said, mock saluting. At ease, Private Muffin Basket. Oh my God, she groaned, laughing. You're never going to drop that nickname, are you? Never, I said. It's a permanent rank. Even little Nora, Chloe's daughter, was running around the yard wearing aviator sunglasses 2 sizes too big, shouting, Uncle Ryan is Iron Man. I bent down and whispered, Close enough, kiddo. Just fewer lawsuits. Harper floated between everyone like the calm and the chaos, refilling drinks, managing small talk, keeping the peace, as usual. You're enjoying this, aren't you? She asked, catching me smirking at Douglas, who was trying to figure out my grill settings like they were top secret. What? Watching your dad admit I know my way around fire. Yeah, it's therapeutic. She leaned in. You know he told the neighbors about you, right? Really? Yeah, she said, grinning. Apparently, you're the humble hero who prefers grilling to glory. Sounds like a Hallmark movie, I said. We should sell the rights. Douglas finally gave up his inspection and sat down, motioning to me. Blake, he said, you're in charge of the grill from now on. I've seen the light. What? Propane can't compete with charcoal. No, he said. You can actually cook without burning the meat or the guests. High praise, Commander. He chuckled. Don't let it go to your head. Oh, it's already there, I said. I'm thinking of having medals printed on my apron. Patricia overheard and laughed. Don't encourage him, Douglas. His ego's going to need its own chair. It already has one, Harper said, pointing to me. Hey, I protested. Confidence is just self-respect with better posture. As the afternoon rolled on, the air felt lighter than it ever had before. The usual tension, the sarcastic digs, gone. It felt like family. Loud, slightly chaotic, but warm. Douglas even started telling stories about me, which was new. So there we were, pinned down, visibility 0, and I swear to God, we thought we were done, he told Harper's cousins. Then this voice crackles over the radio, calm as Sunday morning, says, "Hold tight. I see you." We all thought it was a joke. And then, Chloe asked, hanging on his every word. And then, Douglas said, pointing his beer at me, "This lunatic flies in through a sandstorm like he's got a death wish and pulls us out one by one." We didn't even know his name then, just the call sign, Iron Widow. Everyone turned to look at me. "That's true," I said, "except for one detail." "What's that?" Douglas asked. I wasn't calm. I was swearing the whole way. Everyone burst out laughing. It was the kind of laughter that fills in years of silence. Genuine, not polite. Even Patricia joined in. "You know, Ryan," she said, smiling, "I'm proud of you." "Thank you," I said, pretending to wipe a tear. "That might be the first time you've said that." "Don't ruin it," she said, wagging a finger. "You're lucky I baked dessert." "Then I take it back," I said. "Keep the compliments coming." Chloe leaned over to Harper. "He's gotten funnier since the truth came out." Harper grinned. "No, he's just finally allowed to talk without being interrupted." "That's fair," I said. By the time the sun started setting, the grill was empty. The kids were running barefoot through sprinklers, and Douglas had officially ceded his title as barbecue commander. "You did good, Captain," he said, clapping me on the back. "Didn't think I'd ever say that about another man at my grill." "It's okay," I said. "I know how hard it is to pass command." "It's not hard," he said. "It's just different." He looked around, eyes soft. "You brought this family together today." I snorted. "Pretty sure the ribs helped." "Don't sell yourself short," he said. "You've earned your spot." That hit deeper than I expected. For years, I'd been the outsider, the polite one, the quiet one, the guy they tolerated because Harper loved him. But now, I wasn't just her husband. I was family. The smoke, the laughter, the teasing. It all felt like a language I'd finally learned to speak. Later that night, when most of the guests had left, Harper and I sat on the porch watching the embers die out. "You handled today like a pro," she said. "What can I say? I thrive under pressure." "You know," she said, smiling. "They actually adore you now." "Took them long enough." "They're haze," she said. "They come around at their own speed." I nodded. "Guess so. I just didn't think it'd take a full recon mission and several burgers to get there." Just then, Douglas came back out with 2 beers. "For the grill master," he said, handing me one. "You've earned this." If I'd known all it took to get your respect was a well-seared steak, I'd have done it years ago. He laughed. "Nah, you earned it before that. We just didn't see it." He leaned against the railing, looking up at the sky. "Funny, isn't it? We spend our whole lives training for war, and then we forget how to enjoy peace." "That's why I grill," I said. "Less sand, more smoke." "I'll drink to that," he said, raising his bottle. We clinked beers in quiet understanding. Patricia came out next, holding a pie dish. "I saved you the last slice," she said. "Douglas doesn't need it. Cholesterol." "I'm right here," he said. "And still not getting the pie," she replied. "Respectfully," I said, taking the plate. "This might be your finest work yet." "Don't push your luck," she said, but she was smiling. Before heading home, Chloe walked over, carrying sleepy little Nora on her hip. "You know, Ryan," she said, "I think I finally get it." "Get what?" "Why you never said anything all those years." "You didn't need to." "Exactly," I said. "Silence hits harder when you time it right." "Well," she said, "for what it's worth, I'm glad you broke it." "Me too," I said. "Otherwise, I'd still be the paperwork pilot." She laughed softly. "You'll never let that go, will you?" "Not a chance." When we finally packed up and got in the car, Harper reached over and squeezed my hand. "So how does it feel?" she asked. "How does what feel? Being the family hero?" I smirked. "Overrated. But the catering's better now." She laughed, shaking her head. "You're impossible." "Yeah," I said. "But at least I'm respected now." As we drove away, I looked in the rearview mirror and saw Douglas standing by the grill, watching us leave, beer in hand, pride written all over his face. For the first time, it felt like we weren't just 2 men tied together by marriage and obligation. We were equals. A soldier and a pilot, both retired from battle, but still fighting to keep peace alive, one burger at a time. And as far as family flight schools go, that's a lesson worth teaching. It's funny how the universe loves irony. One moment you're the guy flipping burgers while your in-laws debate whether you're technically military, and the next, you're flying to DC for a Navy commendation ceremony that even the president might attend. I wasn't the type who liked attention. I preferred quiet victories, no parades, no speeches. But when the letter came, official seal, formal tone, the kind of envelope that smells like taxpayer money, Harper nearly tackled me in excitement. You're being honored in DC. Ryan, this is huge, she said, waving the letter like a golden ticket. I just sipped my coffee and muttered, great. My nightmare finally has a dress code. Harper wasn't having it. You're going, she said firmly. You can't spend your life downplaying everything. I'm not downplaying, I said. I'm avoiding public speaking and awkward applause. She smirked. Same thing. Douglas was even more dramatic. He called within the hour. Blake, I just heard. You're getting the commendation? Looks like it, I said. You're damn right you are, he said. I'm coming with. You don't have to, I said. It's not mandatory. Oh, it's mandatory, he replied. If anyone's gonna clap for you, it's gonna be me. I didn't have the heart to tell him I was already dreading the idea of cameras. Patricia, of course, was thrilled. Oh, we have to get matching outfits, she told Harper. Something elegant, respectful, patriotic. I looked up from my coffee. You mean red, white, and overly dramatic? Exactly, she said. Fast forward 2 weeks later, I'm standing in a hotel mirror, straightening my tie while Harper fussed with her hair. You nervous? She asked. Always, I said. About what? About surviving small talk with admirals, I said. That's more dangerous than combat. She laughed. You'll be fine. You're charming when you're miserable. Then I'll be irresistible tonight, I said. When we arrived at the Navy Hall, the place looked like a shrine to discipline. Uniforms crisp enough to slice bread, medals gleaming, flags everywhere. The air even smelled like respect and bureaucracy. Douglas was already there, standing tall in his old uniform, polished boots, chest out, eyes sharp. He hadn't worn that uniform in years, and seeing him in it again. Yeah, it hit me. The man looked proud, and not just of himself. Patricia stood beside him, clutching a tissue before the ceremony even started. You okay? I asked. I'm fine, she said, dabbing her eyes. Just allergies. To emotions? I asked. Exactly. When they called my name, Captain Ryan Blake, call sign Iron Widow, I swear I heard Douglas exhale like a man who'd been holding his breath for 15 years. I walked to the stage, the lights blinding, the applause surprisingly genuine. They pinned the medal on me, shook my hand, and I smiled just enough to look human. The MC read my citation, for exceptional valor, decisive leadership, and selfless service under extreme conditions, and all I could think about was how bad the coffee was in Kandahar that morning. After the ceremony, people swarmed. Old colleagues, officers I hadn't seen in years, even a few fresh-faced recruits who looked at me like I was carved out of legend. Sir, you're the Iron Widow? One kid asked, eyes wide. In the flesh, I said. You're a hero, he said. Nah, I said. I'm just someone who didn't crash at the wrong time. He laughed nervously, not sure if I was joking. I wasn't. Then I saw Douglas across the room. He was standing at attention, that old Navy posture kicking in, and for the first time, he didn't look like the gruff patriarch I'd come to know. He looked proud, not the silent, reluctant kind. The real kind, the one that reaches your eyes. When I stepped down from the stage, he was waiting. He saluted. Not jokingly, not half-heartedly, a full, sharp salute. You made the uniform look good, son, he said. For a second, I didn't even know what to say, so I just smiled. Don't exaggerate, Commander. You just finally found someone cooler than yourself. He grinned, lowering his hand. That's fair. Patricia was crying now. Actual tears, not the kind she blamed on allergies. I'm so proud of you, she said, hugging me like she was trying to squeeze the hero out. Chloe, of course, took a selfie. This is going on Instagram, she said. Hashtag hero in the family. Great, I said. Exactly what I trained for. Later that night, at the hotel bar, Douglas and I sat nursing beers, both quiet. Never thought I'd see the day, he said. What? Me getting a medal? No, he said. Me being in the audience for it. Usually, I'm the one up there. I raised my glass. Guess we swapped roles. He nodded. You did good, Blake. You really did. So did you, I said. You raised Harper. That's more impressive than flying through gunfire. He chuckled. You're not wrong. Then he pulled out his phone, scrolled through some photos, and showed me one, an old, grainy picture of his SEAL team back in the day. He zoomed in on a helicopter behind them, half covered in dust. That's you, he said. Iron Widow. We didn't know your name back then, but we knew your voice. I stared at it, that faded image of the machine that nearly killed me and saved them. Damn, I whispered. Didn't think anyone kept that. I kept it, he said. It's the only reason any of us made it back to take that picture. Later, when Harper and I got back to the hotel room, my phone buzzed. A message from Douglas. It was that same photo, with a caption underneath. The guy who saved us married my daughter. Life's weird. I laughed so hard I nearly woke Harper. When she asked what was so funny, I just showed her the message. She smiled, that proud, soft kind of smile that makes your heart forget how to function. You know, she said. He's never said something like that before. Yeah, I said. Guess respect finally cleared customs. The next morning, we met Douglas and Patricia for breakfast. Patricia was glowing, the kind of glow only mothers get when they realize their bragging rights just doubled. I told everyone back home, she said proudly. You're famous now. Fantastic, I said. Can't wait to get recognized at Costco. Don't joke, she said. Someone will ask for a photo. If they do, I said, I'm charging per autograph. You're impossible, she said, but she was beaming. Chloe joined us late, as always, sliding into the booth like she was arriving at an after-party. So, she said, do we start calling you Captain at family dinners now? Only if I get hazard pay, I said. Fair, she said. You deserve it for surviving moms cooking all these years. Patricia gasped. Excuse me? She's right, I said quickly, ducking before Patricia could swat me with a napkin. You're both terrible. And yet, Chloe said, you keep showing up. Yeah, I said, because now the food comes with respect. By the time we flew home, I'd gotten a dozen messages from old squad mates, a few from reporters, and one from Douglas that simply said, you made us all proud. Short, simple, and somehow heavier than every medal I'd ever worn. When we landed, Harper leaned her head on my shoulder. You know, she said, you looked good up there. I look good everywhere, I said. But go on. She laughed. You deserved that moment, Ryan. Maybe, I said. But I think the best part was seeing your dad there. He'll never admit it, she said. But you've changed him. Nah, I said. I just reminded him humility's not fatal. When we got home, I placed the medal in a box with the rest, the quiet kind of trophies that never make it to the mantle. But that photo Douglas sent me, that I framed, it wasn't about glory. It was proof. Proof that respect doesn't always show up when you expect it, but when it does, it can make an entire family see you in a new light. And as far as medals go, that one, the kind you can't pin on your chest, mattered more than all the rest. A year after the DC ceremony, the Hayes family barbecue returned like clockwork. Same backyard, same overcooked enthusiasm, but a completely different energy. For once, it wasn't a battlefield. Nobody was sharpening sarcasm for sport or waiting for me to mess up the coleslaw ratio. Instead, the air felt lighter, calmer, like we'd all survived something together. Chloe had texted that morning, no muffin bribes this year, just peace and potato salad. I replied, good. My forgiveness quota is full. When I pulled up, Harper riding shotgun and the smell of Douglas's famous ribs already in the air, I knew this barbecue was going to be different. Chloe was the first to greet me. Look who decided to show up, Captain. She said, grinning. Wow, no passive aggression in the opening line, I said. Growth looks good on you. She laughed, pulling me into a hug that actually felt genuine. You'll never let that muffin thing go, will you? Not unless you start bringing donuts, I said. Donuts say sincerity. You're impossible, she said. Yeah, I said, but lovable. Patricia emerged from the kitchen, holding a casserole dish like it was a family heirloom. Ryan, dear, she called out. You'll say grace later, won't you? I nearly dropped my plate. Wait, me? You want me to say grace? Of course, she said. You're practically our good luck charm now. I looked at Harper. See? One medal and suddenly I'm the family chaplain. She smiled. Just roll with it. It's better than being the civilian son-in-law. Barely. I muttered, taking the dish from Patricia before she could injure herself. Douglas was out by the grill, of course, his natural habitat. He spotted me and grinned. There he is, the man of the hour. Commander, I said, saluting playfully. Permission to approach the grill? Granted, he said. Though you outrank me now. Please, I said. You're the family general. I'm just logistics support. You're still better with fire, he said, handing me the tongs. I figured I'd let the professional handle it this year. I took them, nodding. That's the kindest thing anyone's ever said to me here. Don't get sentimental, he said. I still get the first burger. Deal, I said. As long as it's medium rare, not boot camp. He laughed, and for a brief moment, it felt like friendship. Easy, warm, real. As the day rolled on, the backyard came alive with chatter and laughter that didn't carry sharp edges anymore. The cousins ran around with sparklers, Patricia played host like a woman on a redemption tour, and Chloe, bless her dramatic soul, kept referring to me as Captain Barbecue. You keep that up, I warned her, and I'm making you peel potatoes next time. You love it, she said. Don't lie. You're right, I said. I do. Feels good being adored after years of character assassination. Hey, she said, laughing. We said we were sorry. You did, I said. Multiple times. I'm just enjoying the sequel. When dinner time came around, everyone gathered around the table. The food actually looked edible. Progress. Patricia tapped her wine glass. Ryan, she said, would you say grace? I raised an eyebrow. You sure? Last time I prayed, a sandstorm stopped mid-flight. Then by all means, Douglas said, chuckling. Let's get some divine insurance for this meal. I stood, cleared my throat, and said, all right, bow your heads. Lord, thank you for family, for second chances, and for finally seasoning the chicken. The table erupted in laughter. Even Patricia laughed, the kind of laugh that meant she'd let the jab slide because she knew it came from love. Amen, I said. Let's eat before Douglas re-enlists for control of the grill. You're never living that down, are you? Douglas said. Not a chance, I replied. Dinner was loud, messy, and perfect. No judgment, no tension, no silent competitions. Chloe told stories about her job, Patricia bragged about Harper's latest promotion, and Douglas tried to convince me to teach Nora how to fly one day. She's only 7, I said. Exactly, he said. Start him young. Hayes women need altitude. She's got plenty, I said. Have you met her mother? Chloe laughed so hard she nearly spilled her wine. You're not wrong, she said. At one point, Douglas reached into his pocket and pulled out a small coin. Old, worn, the edges smooth from time. This belonged to my CO, he said quietly. The table hushed. He gave it to me after our last mission. Told me to pass it to someone I trusted to carry it forward. He turned to me. It's yours now. I froze. I can't take that, I said. Sure you can, he said. You've already earned it. Patricia's eyes glistened. Douglas, she whispered, are you sure? Absolutely, he said. He's family. I took the coin, heavier than it looked, and turned it over in my palm. The engraving was faint, but you could still make out the word Semper Fortis. Always strong. This belongs to you, I said. Give it to your granddaughter one day. Tell her what Iron Widow really means. Douglas stared at me, eyes shining. You sure? Yeah, I said, handing it back. Legacy doesn't belong to one person. It belongs to the people who remember. He nodded, slipping it back into his pocket, emotion sitting heavy in the space between us. Deal, he said. After dinner, as the sun dipped low and the sky bled into shades of orange and purple, Harper and I sat with Douglas and Patricia on the porch. The cicadas hummed, the fireflies blinked, and for once, there was no pretense, no performance. Just peace. Patricia leaned back and sighed. You know, for years I thought you were too quiet, Ryan. I mistook it for weakness. You and everyone else, I said. Turns out it was just self-control. And patience, she added. Lots of patience. Oh, I ran out of that long ago, I said. I just started using sarcasm as a substitute. And we deserved every bit of it, she said with a smile. You handled us better than we deserved. Harper rested her head on my shoulder. You realize this is the first barbecue where nobody's fighting? Yeah, I said. Almost makes me nostalgic for the chaos. Don't say that, she said, laughing. We've evolved. True, I said. Now the chaos just has better manners. Later, when everyone started packing up, Douglas pulled me aside. You know, he said, when I first met you, I thought you were too calm to be a soldier. I didn't trust it. I get that a lot, I said. But calm's not the absence of fear, Commander. It's knowing when to save your adrenaline. He smiled. You're full of one-liners, you know that. Yeah, I said. You just weren't listening before. I'm listening now, he said, and that hit harder than I expected. As the last car pulled away and the night grew quiet, I stood in the backyard, watching the smoke from the grill fade into the dark. Harper joined me, wrapping her arms around my waist. What are you thinking? She asked. Just that this used to be my least favorite place, I said. Now it feels like home. Because they finally stopped judging? She asked. Because I stopped needing them to, I said. Respect's great, but peace? That's better. She smiled, resting her chin on my shoulder. You've come a long way, Captain. We all have, I said. Even your mom. Especially my mom, she said, laughing softly. We stood there, the smell of smoke and summer still hanging in the air, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel like an outsider. I felt like family. Flawed, loud, chaotic, but real. The Hayes family had finally learned to look past their own reflections long enough to see the man behind the grill. And maybe, just maybe, that was the real mission all along. Not the medals, not the recognition, but the quiet victory of finally being seen. There's a special kind of peace that comes when life finally stops feeling like a performance review. Years had passed since the infamous barbecue that flipped the family dynamic on its head, and the Hayes clan had settled into something rare, functional chaos. Harper and I had a son now, Jamie, a walking combination of her smile and my stubbornness. He'd inherited my eyes and her ability to negotiate bedtime like a tiny lawyer. Douglas adored him. He's got your focus, he'd tell me, watching Jamie line up toy planes across the carpet. He's got your stubbornness, I'd reply. That's how I know he's family. It became our routine. Douglas and I weren't just tolerating each other anymore. We were allies. Patricia had even stopped calling me, our son-in-law the civilian, and switched to Captain, though she used it like a punctuation mark. Captain, want more pie? Captain, fix the Wi-Fi. Captain, why is your son teaching my dog to salute? I didn't mind. After years of sarcasm and suspicion, being their go-to problem solver felt like victory disguised as domestic life. One afternoon, I stopped by the Hayes house to find Douglas in the backyard, teaching Jamie how to salute properly. You're bending your wrist, kid, he said, adjusting Jamie's arm. It's like this. Like this. Jamie tried again, face scrunched in concentration. Perfect, Douglas said proudly. He's a natural. I leaned on the porch railing, watching the two of them, the old soldier and the new recruit, and felt something I hadn't in years, stillness. He's gonna end up bossing everyone around, I called out. Douglas turned, grinning. Then he'll fit right in. God help us, I said, walking over. He handed Jamie a juice box like it was a medal of honor. Respect earned, soldier. Thanks, Grandpa, Jamie said, taking a loud slurp. Douglas looked at me. You're raising him right. Yeah, I said, smiling. Trying to teach him that strength doesn't always mean shouting. You sure he's related to us? Douglas teased. He's the upgrade, I said. Same stubborn core, fewer trust issues. Inside, Patricia was arranging flowers in a vase, humming. When she saw me, she smiled, genuinely. Ryan, dear, sit. I made your favorite. Which one? I asked. All of them, she said. You've earned it. I feel like I'm being fattened for something, I said. Don't ruin the moment, she replied. It was still strange, seeing her so kind. There were days I half expected her to snap back into her old self, but she never did. Maybe guilt really was the world's best seasoning. Harper walked in then, holding a mug of tea, her eyes lighting up at the sight of me. Hey, Captain, she said softly. Hey, Trouble, I said. You look happy. I am, she said. It's nice seeing you here without needing armor. Yeah, I said, glancing around. The air's different. Less judgment, more cinnamon. Chloe arrived a few minutes later, coffee in one hand, phone in the other. Okay, I have to say it. Your kid is basically a mini you, she said, scrolling through photos. He just told me copy that when I asked if he wanted a cookie. Proud moment, I said. Next, I'll teach him to negotiate with muffins. You're never gonna drop that, are you? Not even in death, I said. She laughed, shaking her head. You've mellowed out, Captain. No, I said. I've just learned that revenge tastes better when it's caramelized over time. After dinner, we all sat around the living room, the kind of scene that would have been unthinkable years ago. Patricia knitting, Douglas telling stories, Chloe pretending not to cry laugh at Douglas's exaggerated war tales. Jamie was sitting on my lap, spinning a toy plane in his hands. What's that one called, Dad? He asked. That's a Hornet, I said. Fast. Agile. Tough. Like you, he said. Nah, I said. More like your mom. Harper smiled from across the room. Nice save, she said. I'm a professional, I replied. Douglas cleared his throat. Hey, Ryan, he said, reaching into a small box on the coffee table. Got something for you. He pulled out a framed photo. Our photo from the ceremony in D.C., both of us in uniform, shaking hands. I had it printed for Jamie's room, he said. So he knows what kind of man his dad is. I stared at it for a long moment. You didn't have to. I know, he said. That's what makes it meaningful. Patricia smiled softly. He's right. You've changed this family. No, I said. You guys just finally switched to high definition. Harper nudged me. Take the compliment, Captain. Yes, ma'am, I said, saluting. Everyone laughed. Later, as the night wound down, Douglas pulled me aside in the kitchen. You ever think about going back? He asked. Flying, I said. Every day? But no. My missions now involve school pickups and bedtime stories. Doesn't sound so bad. It's not, I said. It's peaceful. He nodded, handing me a beer. You've earned that peace. Took a while, I said. Had to survive more family dinners than firefights. Yeah, he said, chuckling. And you did both with style. Style's just survival with better posture, I said. You and your damn one-liners, he muttered, but he was smiling. When we got home, Harper tucked Jamie into bed while I stood by the window, looking out at the quiet street. The house was dim, peaceful, a far cry from the chaos it used to be. Harper joined me, wrapping her arms around my waist. He's out cold, she whispered. He's a good kid, I said. He's got your heart. And your sarcasm, she said. So basically the perfect mix. Exactly, I said. I'm proud of him already. You should be, she said. He's going to grow up knowing exactly who his dad is. Yeah, I said softly. And maybe he won't have to prove it to anyone. We sat in silence for a moment, just breathing. Then Harper smiled. You know, I think your quiet strength thing finally rubbed off on them. Who, your family? I asked. Yeah, she said. They're calmer now. Kinder. Don't get ahead of yourself, I said. Your mom still judges the way I fold napkins. True, she said, laughing. But she loves you. She tolerates me, I said. That's progress. You're impossible. And yet irresistible, I said. It's a curse. A few weeks later, Chloe stopped by with a gift bag. Don't worry, she said. It's not muffins. Then it's already better, I said, opening it. Inside was a coffee mug that read, World's Coolest Brother-in-Law. Wow, I said. A mug of redemption. Don't make it weird, she said. I just figured, you know you earned it. Thank you, I said. This will look great next to my least liked son-in-law 2018 trophy. You still have that? She said, shocked. Absolutely, I said. It's a reminder of how far we've come. She laughed. You're a menace. And proud of it, I said. That evening, Harper and I sat outside watching Jamie chase fireflies in the yard. You ever think about everything that had to happen to get here? She asked. All the chaos, the insults, the muffins? Every day, I said. And weirdly, I wouldn't change a thing. Not even Chloe's jokes. Especially not those, I said. They built character. And material. She laughed. You're something else. So I've been told, I said. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Douglas's text came through. Proud of you, Captain. Tell Jamie Grandpa says keep that salute sharp. I smiled, showing it to Harper. He's getting sentimental, I said. You have that effect on people, she said. Nah, I said. I just make them laugh first so they don't notice the change sneaking up on them. When we finally went inside, I stopped by the shelf in our living room. On it sat the framed photo of the ceremony, Douglas's seal coin beside it, and now, Chloe's mug. Together, they looked like something bigger than trophies. Proof of a journey that started with mockery and ended with belonging. I thought about that first barbecue, the laughter, the humiliation, the moment it all flipped. I'd gone from the paperwork guy to the man who'd quietly redefined the family. Harper turned off the lights and slipped her hand into mine. You thinking about something deep? She asked. Always, I said. What now? Just realizing something, I said. Silence isn't strength when it hides the truth, but it is when it speaks for itself. She smiled, kissing my cheek. You really should write that down. Nah, I said. I already lived it. And as Jamie's laughter echoed faintly from his room, and the world outside settled into quiet, I knew one thing for sure. I was finally done proving myself. No more paperwork. No more pretending. Just life, love, and peace earned the hard way.